Right, so at BMM, we've done a fan survey for the BTCC Driver of the Season, and we've had over 200 votes. And Charles Rainford is the leader by 65%. Is that a surprise?
Well, I think a lot of people would say that the obvious choice is Ash Sutton with his brilliant start to the season, taking 9 podiums in the first 12 rounds. But Charles has had a brilliant season with West Surrey Racing, taking 3 podiums so far this year, and won the last race at Alton Park before the summer break. I think he's been driving really well. Um, but yeah, he sits fourth in the championship, and I believe he's third in the independent championship at the moment. So I think he'll definitely be wanting to win the independent drivers championship and help West Surrey Racing secure the teams championship in there as well. But it's been a great start to the season for Charles, and he definitely deserves those 100, what is it, 130 odd votes that he received there. So I don't think he's that much of a shock to win that, to be honest.
And just talking about Sutton, he's obviously second there with just under 16% of the votes. 33 people have voted for him. I mean, obviously he's had a good start to the season. Just want to talk a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, he's had an incredible start to the season, one of the best starts to the season that we've seen Sutton have. He's an incredible touring car driver, and he's cemented that this year. I think the reason he didn't win the vote is that he's the obvious choice, and that a lot of people want to go with somebody else, maybe someone who's, uh, maybe not as successful as Sutton, but has impressed this year. Um, we've seen Nick Hamilton in third place there, who, by his standards, has had a brilliant start to the year in a season where you'd expect him to do well because he's now with that Team Virtue package. So, yeah, I think Sutton's had a brilliant start to the year. He's obviously now the shoe in for the title by a long way. And the pace of the Napa Racing Ford, the new Napa Racing Ford, has been incredible so far this year. So yeah, there's no doubt that he should definitely be within the top two of this list for sure.
I'd say, and they're currently leading the teams championship, aren't they?
Yeah.
At Napa Racing. I mean, I said they look really competitive as well with a few of their other drivers getting up there.
So I'd say that Dan Camish was actually one of my votes for the top driver so far this season. He's third in the championship at the moment, only a couple points behind Ingram, who looked so dominant last year. So I think Camish has been really impressive. Obviously, they lost Dan Rowbottom, who was a really solid driver in the Napa Racing stable for quite a few years. And Sam Osborne and Lewis Selby have been doing good. Um, so yeah, I think the Napa Racing team are going to be so hard to beat. They've got so much momentum with them now, and they're only going to be understanding more about their package as the race meetings come. So I think they're going to be an incredibly tough team to topple in the second half of the season.
I said just on Ingram, he's obviously had quite a lot setting him back, isn't he, with some disqualifications and some unfortunate incidents. And I suppose he's done very well to be second in the standings, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean the whole it's something that I've written a lot about this year is that the Team Virtue team have been quite A, unlucky, and B, unreliable. Um, I believe all the drivers have had 3 retirements so far this year, which is far more than any other driver. If you look at Ash Sutton, he's probably only, I think he's to memory, he retired in the first race to pole after the contact into turn one, and maybe had one more retirement. Um, you just can't win a championship with 3 retirements. That's it's You just can't do that. You have to be so bulletproof throughout the year. But the pace has been really encouraging. Ingram had a brilliant bounce back weekend at Alton Park with 3 podiums. Um, so the pace is there, and we saw that in the car last year where it looked almost unbeatable at times, especially with Ingram at the helm. But yeah, he's just had some misfortune. But that happens. It's motorsport. That happens. Kind of what goes around comes around. He had a really good year last year, and then maybe this year a little bit on the decline, to no fault of his own, really. He's had 7 podiums throughout the year so far, so I don't think there's that many concerns. It's just maybe the thing that's been in my mind throughout the whole season is that what's happened to that Team Virtue Hyundai over the off season for it to suddenly become quite unreliable.
Yeah, I suppose that's something they'll have to look over. Like you said, over this summer break, and then we talked a bit about Nick Hamilton. And say he's had for his standards, like you said, a really good start to the season, and obviously picked up his first trophy in the Touring Car Championship as well.
Yeah, Nick's had a brilliant start to the season, and it must be so encouraging for him to be building upon results every weekend. Obviously, he's not going to be on the podium every weekend. The Jack Sears Championship is a difficult one to get to the front of, especially with some really talented drivers like Lewis Selby, Sam Osborne, James Dorlin in that championship or in that category this year. So it's quite unlikely that you're going to be on the podium every weekend there. But it was just an incredible moment to see him finally get a trophy in his hands. And I'm sure most people saw the clip of him standing up on the podium. But it must be such a confidence builder for him. And I think we're only going to see him take more trophies as the season goes on. The Highlander package is strong. He seems to be taking to it well. So I think if he gets a good start to the weekend, he could definitely take some more trophies. I think in the second half of the season.
I would say because he's had to bounce back from quite a difficult season, isn't he? From last season, and he had that quite monumental car failure, didn't he, in spectacular fashion, and
Yeah,
so he actually missed a race, didn't he? Or went round with that.
yeah, that was Silverstone last year, wasn't it? Where the Cooper expired quite dramatically.
Yes.
Um, Obviously, we're not seeing that car in the championship this season. But we've seen it over the last few years. The Hyundai is such an upgrade on the Cooper, especially with the team behind it. So and Nick's got some of the best teammates in the championship to learn from. So I think he's bouncing back brilliantly and building a really strong campaign so far this year.
And just onto the on-track action. I mean, we've got a new format this season with the qualifying race. What I've put something out recently asking for people's opinions, and it's definitely proving quite controversial. Do you have a opinion on that?
Yeah, I think I don't think there's really that much of a negative in creating more racing action in a weekend. I think there was concern going into it that it would, we've seen Tim Harvey and stuff say in commentary quite a lot that a lot of people thought it was going to kind of be a bit of a processional race, and drivers wouldn't really want to risk their grid position. Um, but I think it's provided us with some really great races. Donington was a brilliant one with the clash between Sutton, Sutton and quite a few drivers going into turn one, and Ingram managing to take the lead, but had that penalty which set him back, and then Rowbottom came to take the victory. I think we've had some really good races to pole so far, and I think it just really whets the appetite for Sunday's action. It also does give you a bit of an idea who's going to be a bit more competitive on Sunday. But yeah, I think that if you can add, to an extent, if you can add more racing to a weekend, then it's better. It brings more people to the circuit on a Saturday, which I think is brilliant for the circuits themselves as well. So yeah, I think the race to pole is brilliant, and it just gives us something a bit more entertaining because we still have traditional qualifying, just in a different nature.
So I suppose it's kind of similar to the Formula One situation with the sprint format, isn't it? Where
Yeah,
there's a lot of controversy around that, especially when it first came in, and you've got people, thinking it's just a filler sort of thing, or
I
not
think
really
with
needed.
Formula One, it's a bit different because obviously touring cars, there's so much action in a race compared
Yeah,
to Formula One. I think that if you have a really action-packed race, it works brilliantly because you get more fans tuning in probably to Sunday's action. But if there's maybe not as much action, then you might get fans going, "Oh, don't really know if I want to watch all the races necessarily." They might tune in for a couple if they're available, but I think then it becomes more of I'll tune in if I have time rather than wow, that was a brilliant race. I need to tune in on Sunday.
yeah, and I think it's that. I think some people still, might think that it's that there's not enough action, or they just or I suppose it might be the more traditionalist fans maybe that are against that format. I say because they've definitely provided the action for and definitely get the fans to the circuit, like you said.
Not every race is going to be absolute carnage and action packed. You've got to accept that sometimes that a bit more of a calmer race is better, because if every race was completely action packed, you'd have no cars left by race 3 on Sunday. So I think that sometimes there's races that aren't quite as door to door and safety cars all the time, but then the boost strategy comes into play. There's plenty of other ways that a race can be interesting without crashes and overtakes and stuff. So yeah, I think it's still a good addition to the championship personally.
So obviously we're into the second season with the turbo boost, coming in at the start of the last year. It's still a bit of a controversial topic at times, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's been controversial in many ways. I think when you give some people more well, in this case, more boost than others, I think it's always going to be a bit controversial. I think a lot of the controversy this season has been that people are winning without boost. People are winning with the minimum allocation of boost, which is what we've seen Sutton do so many times throughout this year. And so I think that people naturally have a bit of cause for concern with that. But what you also have to appreciate is that Sutton and his Ford Focus at the moment are such a formidable pairing that you have to appreciate that they are so good that they are overcoming the boost deficit. That's the job of these teams, is to build the fastest car and the drivers to get as acquainted with it as they can. And Ash Sutton is just on that level where at the moment, he is somewhat untouchable. But I think that the boost has created some great racing. It's definitely promoted more overtakes, I'd say. And we've seen, obviously, a lot of time we see the front drivers like Sutton and Ingram, Camish and stuff with little to no boost. But when they have a bit of a mishap in one of the races or a failure, that they go to the back and they have plenty of boost to work with. So you almost know that they're going to come back through the field to a really good position. I think Sutton and Ingram both had a race where they started from the back so far. Ingram at Donington, I think it was in race 2 after he was disqualified. You almost know that they're going to come back through the field to a good position. It's just how high they can get to. So yeah, I think the boost is doing good. I think you do need something like either hybrid or boost to make that racing to make the racing just a bit more interesting, and also create a bit more of a strategic element for the drivers.
But do you think with the drivers coming through, do you reckon that's making it too easy for them to get through the back?
I think a lot of the time they're so fast anyway. Sutton and Ingram have, for plenty of years, have been on another level almost. So I think that no matter what, they're going to come through the field. But I think for some of the other drivers, it's a bit of a leveler to help them catch up to the front. If you start like 5th or something, you have plenty of more of an advantage over the guy starting in 1st. So I think it's a bit more of a help to drivers to get back through the field and ultimately promote overtaking.
Yeah, and I suppose it can, drivers winning without boost, it makes you appreciate just their skill level, that they can,
exactly.
still get race wins.
Yeah, I think that's something that Sutton has done so many times this year. Obviously, we've seen him win back-to-back races and claim podiums so many times with the lack of boost. And yeah, you do just need to appreciate that the package that Napa have is incredible, and Sutton is a driver that is probably going to win a record-breaking championship this year. You just have to appreciate that he is on another level this year, and he is an incredible touring car driver.
And so we touched on Rainford leading the our BTCC driver of the season vote so far. Obviously, he's third in the independent championship. It's tight between that top three, isn't it?
It's so incredibly close. You know, there's 7 points separating the top three in that championship. And it's kind of going Audi, BMW, BMW, Audi at the moment. Um, it's Mikey Doble that leads the independents at the moment. And it's such a tight championship, this one, because Audi have looked, the Power Max Racing Audis have looked incredible so far this season. And West Surrey dropped down from the manufacturers to the independent championship for this season. And we knew that those cars are going to be good. So it's shaping up like a really, really fascinating championship to watch in the second half of the season. With Darrell de Leon currently in second. He claimed his first independent victory at Alton Park last round. So yeah, it's wide open. You've got Aidan Moffat in fourth, Gordon Shedden in fifth. And Moffat and Shedden are only separated by a point. They're a little bit away. They're 11 points back from Charles Rainford in third. So a bit of work to do for them there if they want to get right up at the sharp end. But yeah, it's so close. You could throw a blanket over the top three. So yeah, it's an incredible battle to watch and something really interesting to watch alongside the main championship picture.
And saying all five of those have been, up there competing at the front as well as the the independent championship. They've all been there or thereabouts. So it's really proving up to be a good fight in that for the second half of the season.
Well, no, some of them have. No, Doble won an overall Doble claimed an overall victory so far this season. So was Rainford. So was Shedden. I think Darrell de Leon's had quite a few podiums. Aidan Moffat's been up in the top five quite a few times. So, these aren't guys that are independents and not quite up there with the manufacturers. They're right at the pointy end as well. So, yeah, some incredible machinery in there and some incredible drivers as well. Shedden is a multiple champion in the British touring cars. So, yeah, I think it's going to be an incredible battle to watch. It's going to be all over the place and one that we can't declare a victor until the checkered flag brands in October.
So we've had Plato Racing, obviously a lot of noise around them coming into this season, and they got pole in the first round of the season. But how have you summed up their season so far?
Well, I think there's always going to be noise around Jason Plato in the British touring car paddock. He's an incredible character, and I'm really glad to see him back with his own team. I think the team have been doing really well. Obviously, they've brought a new chassis into the championship with two incredible drivers as well, with experience in the Mercedes before. Dan Rowbottom has had experience, and Adam Morgan has been, a bit of a Mercedes. He's been an incredible driver in the Mercedes with plenty of experience in the championship as well. So I think they've performed fairly well so far this season. Obviously, the highlight being the race to pole victory for Dan Rowbottom. And yeah, I think they're just going to keep improving as the season goes on. Hopefully, I think they got a decent package. And yeah, I think that it's just going to be a team that gets stronger. The more that they gel together, the more that they understand with their car. I think they have been a bit unlucky so far this season. Rowbottom and Morgan have had a couple reliability problems, potentially just teething issues for the team. But I hope that we see Plato Racing around in the paddock for quite a few years to come.
And so once they get rid of those teething issues, do you see them competing near the front?
I think it's going to be really hard to catch the other manufacturers like Team Virtue and Napa Racing. They're so established in the sport and they have so much knowledge on just how to get the very best out of their cars that it's going to be difficult for a new team to turn up and compete straight away. And maybe after the race to pole, we all thought that they could take it to Napa Racing and Team Virtue, but they haven't quite been able to follow it up so far yet. But I do see that car having quite a lot of potential, at the back end of this year as they understand it more. Definitely.